Most people get into relationships unconsciously, and this includes my former self, so it's a very common problem. And the reason is that we've never taught in school how to actually assess and get into healthy relationships. This is not a subject that anyone teaches, and we're almost left to fend for ourselves. And so instead of being angry at school or your parents for not teaching you this, perhaps maybe empower yourself and educate yourself on how to have conscious relationships. The reason why this is such a big problem is that love happens biochemically. So when you're falling in love, it's a self-hypnosis, like I'm ready to fall in love, and the next person that fits my criteria, you fall in love with. But sometimes it's like that person's so amazing. And what happens in your brain, literally when you fall in love, is that you think that if you fall out of love with them, if they leave you, that you're literally not gonna survive. And this comes from 200,000 years of evolution in terms of passing on our genetics. Back when life expectancy was about 25 to 30 years old, you don't have time to decide if you're in a healthy relationship. Your genes, literally your brain, is hardwired biologically to just pass on your genetic information. Today, however, the average life expectancy is 77 to 80 years. So life lasts a long time. And a lot of people stay in unhealthy relationships because they never made that conscious choice. Now, given the fact that a lot of people have dependency issues, sometimes we're overly dependent on a person, what we call a codependent relationship. So what can you do? Well, the first step is understand the 3 steps of selecting relationships. There's attraction, selection, and connection. Attraction is a first step. You have to learn how to be able to attract as many options as possible in your market. Because by doing that, you can make a conscious decision. What person is the right person for you? And you're not making a decision from scarcity, like, oh, it's a first girl that liked me, so I'm gonna latch onto her. The chances of the first girl liking you, being the right partner for you long term, is very, very low. So in our courses, in the links below, in our YouTube video, I talk about some of the things you can do to increase your attraction, your options of the people that you could date. The second part, which so many people miss, is the idea of selection. How do I select the right person to get into a relationship with? So here are some tips. One client I had, she wanted to get back with this guy, and I told her, listen, spend 2 weeks with him. Book a flight to Texas, spend 2 weeks with him. And she did that, and then she came back and she said, oh my God, I'm so glad I did that. I'm like, why? What happened? She's like, he said all these things, he promised me all these things, and for the first 3 to 4 days, it was great. The sex was good, he said the right things, and then after a week, I saw his old patterns completely come back. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad you found out, And the reason is it's hard to put up a facade for more than a week. And what people do and what they say are 2 different things. So when you're unsure about someone or you want to make sure that it's the right relationship for you, go spend 2 weeks with them. Take a trip for a week and just see how they are on that trip and really get to see how they handle situations, be it good or bad. Some of my crazy rich clients, they even thought about like hiring another guy to like try to seduce her to see if she's loyal. That's, I think, going too far. But what you do want to look out for are the core qualities of how they make their decisions. A really good question to experience is to really understand, maybe from their family or their siblings or maybe from themselves, but stories of how they made decisions as kids that got them where they are today. And that gives you the idea of the principles of how they make life decisions. And you want to make sure that those principles are somewhat aligned with your core principles. For example, someone who believes that money should be made and spent because life is short is gonna have conflict with someone who believes that money should be saved and should compound and should build an empire and a castle and a base, right? These are 2 conflicting principles of how to manage finances and wealth. The third thing you wanna look out for are how you argue. There was a professor, I think it was Professor Arthur Aaron, or it might have been another one, but he studied, he was a therapist and he studied couples, and he said he could predict with a 95% accuracy whether or not those couples will be together 5, 10 years from now. And the one thing that was used in his predictions was how the couple argued, okay? When it's, you made me feel, you did this, it's a very difficult way of arguing. When it's like, when you did this, I felt like this, that's a different type of arguing. Generally speaking, there's a lot of nuance here, but people that are more able to do nonviolent communication, Professor Marshall Rosenberg, when they argue and they express their views, are a lot likely to stay together than people who blame their partners for their shortcomings. The perceived injustice that they have experienced at the hands of their partner. So the third part is connection, right? Once you have attraction, selection, then you have connection. Connection is the ability to grow a relationship, to kind of nurture the plant, to grow deeper, to understand each other better, and for that love to ground and bond more. And this is the beautiful part of having a relationship where you feel like you're growing with that person and that you're getting deeper and deeper. Every day you fall more in love. If you've done your attraction correctly and you selected the right person, if you selected and filtered out the right person to see if they're the right person for you, and then you fully commit in the connection, that's how you have a fulfilling, loving, beautiful relationship that so few people have. But if you understand the steps, you can now be aware of them, and you can find yourself in a relationship that is fulfilling, that you feel like you didn't have to settle for. If you want more help with the attraction and selection part, and maybe even the connection part, consider coaching with me, joining our mentorship group. Go to highintegrityskills.com. Plenty of resources there, or the links below in the description. If we can help you in any way, it will be a pleasure to serve. And I'll see you in the next one.